Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Campus Consortium's EdTech Think Tank webinar series on how EdTech innovators are transforming education. If you have any questions now or during today's presentation, please type them into the chat box or questions pane into the Zoom control panel. Without further ado, I would like to pass the platform to Dr. Carl Horvath, President at Campus Consortium.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Campus Consortium webinars. We have a think tank made up of members, leaders, functional experts in education technology and other areas, finances, academics, that come together and really tell us the kinds of topics that they're interested in. And we usually present most of what is relevant to education, and that's no different today. Today, we'll be talking about education and what everyone's talking about, which is innovation. My name is Carl Horvath. I'm president of Campus Consortium, and today I have a great panel of guests that are doing wonderful things for the education industry, and we'll be hearing from each of them, and they will give us their perspective on education and how technology is so dependent on it and what technology can do to make your institution a success, your program a success, or how you can better serve students. Before we get started with our guests, I would like to kind of move into the first poll question. We're going to have a few poll questions. This is really helpful. Post this presentation, we will send all of you a EdTech report, and in the report will be analysis of these questions and how everyone answered. First poll question is, identify trends you think are important to education and just select all that apply. I'd like to get your feedback in terms of what areas you think is most important, and then we'll focus future content on the areas that you think need more attention. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Campus Consortium. It's a technology association, higher education, K-12 associations, anything to do with education. Yes, we are education technology, but we also include and have a lot of participation from the finance, the academic areas, the student areas, enrollment, every area you can think of in an institution, because technology affects each and every one of them. Before we move on to telling you a little bit more about campus, I just wanted to call out a few of the attendees so we all know who's here today. We have about 100 institutions that have registered for this event from all over the United States and some from outside of the country, out of the US. And I'm going to call out a few of those names. First of all, we have our old friend, Jake Fowler, who's in attendance. Jake, thank you for coming today. We also have University of Southern California, Boise State University, Kansas City Art Institute is where Jake is from. We also have Yale University, welcome. Fort Lewis College, George Mason University, Chawanaki Unified School District, welcome, Filiberto, good to see you. Alabama A&M University, Jackson County School District, welcome, Brandy. And Wake Forest University, University of Michigan, McKendree. We have University of Sioux Falls. We have some technical colleges, Midlands Technical College, Seton Hall University, welcome. And also Queen's University. We have universities from Uganda. We have from Mexico and other areas outside of the United States as well. And welcome to all our friends from around the world. So I'm going to kind of go back to finishing up this part of the presentation, which is really telling you about Campus Consortium. We do have a virtual conference coming up. We'll send you a bit of information about that. That should be interesting. A lot of participation from members, non-members who are education institutions, as well as vendors. Today, we're going to be talking about education innovation. And before I get into it, I want to hit you with one more poll question. And that is identify the primary areas of digital transformation in your institution. So first we talked about what do you think the major areas are in education. Here, specifically in your institution, where do you think that most of the transformation is happening now? If you could just take 30 seconds to answer that, that would be great. Our first poll question we'll present at the end to give you an idea of what the feedback is. All right, so I'd like to get into innovation, education innovation very briefly, and that is, innovation's necessary. The pandemic really accelerated the emphasis of technology in education, and many people realize that to serve students of the future, to serve students of today, there's some changes that we have to make. And a lot of the panelists will talk about those changes today. We are looking at the transformation that's happening now, or the need for this transformation, which is, of course, employer needs, how students work differently and communicate differently than students of the past. Big emphasis on digital diversity, equity, and inclusion, who can access technology and who can't. And then really institutionally rethinking the strategic role of technology. And so a lot of the changes that are affecting the ability to incorporate technology is budget, of course, always an issue. And then the workforce, we've heard about the great resignation and the ability to hire people that are able to complete the job that's required. And if you hire just entry-level people all the time, you don't hire the expertise, that can affect your institution. For example, IT security or cybersecurity. And so these are important areas that really need attention, in addition to the access issues, as well as customization and social media and how students interact with academics and student services. Here's our poll one. We have most people thinking or giving us feedback that AI, artificial intelligence, and adaptive learning is important, and adapting to students' evolving needs. Absolutely. Great. Thank you for answering those poll questions. One last item I wanted to kind of, start wrapping up with is, in our institutions, there's pros and cons to our existing technology that's used for teaching, learning, student services. And the pros are they're established, and the cons are they're slow to change. And we all know that sometimes working with ed tech companies, it's very difficult to get a change when we need it. The pro of innovative ed tech pros are it's modern, flexible, more cost effective, responsive, yet a lot of them have short history, less references, and less experience. And I'm sure our guests will speak to some of those issues today. But I would encourage everyone, all the institutions here, to not look at ed tech vendors as vendors solely. You really need to evaluate them as a partner, because your institution likely has to change very soon to meet the needs of students and make sure that your institution is relevant to the future of education. To do that, technology dependency is key, and finding the right people to work with and diving a little deeper in who you work with is very important. All right. So, some ed tech innovators in the ed tech sector today. You will look at this list and maybe you'll see some people you recognize, authors, presenters, evangelists for each of these areas: culture, strategy, access. We'll send you this list so you can take a look at some of their work. And we're going to introduce our EdTech innovators today that have joined us, and they'll talk about key areas that may be of concern to your institution: engagement, access, security, experience, and learning. And before I hand it off to our first presenter, I'd like to ask you for one more poll question, please. And that is, identify institutional strategic objectives that require immediate innovation, development, solutions. That's looking at what your institution does now and say, boy, we could really use technology innovation to help us fix this problem or make this better for our students, or to teach more effectively or to be more efficient. And those are the types of areas I'd like your audience to please respond to. All right, I would like to introduce our first panelists, and thank you for joining. Alicia Sepulveda. She is a person who is the Chief Operating Officer for Wildflower Education. She empowers college students, and I love her bio because it really speaks to what everybody's thinking in institutions. She talks about, you know, what are our goals? And she doesn't load it up with tech talk or intricate statistical information, which is important, but she really speaks to the spirit of what she does. And she also talks about, you know, how to engage students rather than just teaching them and moving them on. I think her approach really sets students up for lifelong learning. She's also hosts a podcast that we will get you the information on. We'll put it on our website and we'll get it out to you. It's a College Life podcast. And she interviews so many people, students, graduates, non-graduates, and other people to get insight on student and the student culture. So yeah, really important for us as institutions to understand student culture. Feedback on poll 2, looks like most of the audience thought that teaching and learning methods were very important, and increasing technology support and innovation, and then options for online learning. So yes, definitely shows that a lot of the way we do things has to change and become more emphasized. Alicia, I'd like to hand it off to you, please. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Carl. And really what I want to do today is focus on different trends that I've been seeing specifically in my work as an academic coach throughout my time for about 12 years, as well as an adjunct instructor at University of Colorado Boulder. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So these are the 4 trends that I'm really seeing, and this is really rooted in my experience with students and in student engagement. So the first one is really focused on loneliness and sense of belonging. And this is something we've always talked about, sense of belonging in the university and college setting. But really what I'm seeing, and really we've seen this in data as well in reports pre-pandemic as well as currently, where students are incredibly lonely. And I actually shared a couple statistics in my class. It was my first class in January that I was teaching with students in person. And I just shared some of these statistics, and some of the students were just like, yep, I'm seeing that too. Like they were all just really resonating with that sense of loneliness. So whether it's them or like a friend or, you know, a friend that they have, they're all really experiencing this, and they find it really difficult to connect. And so we want to make it easier for students to connect. And I really believe, you know, I do not have the tech background, but I really believe we have to figure out how we can leverage technology to actually solve this problem. It's such a critical need for our students. The second trend that I'm seeing is that we really do learn better together. I mean, we all know this. It happens, right? We all know this individually, personally. We learn better when we're together. But it's been really difficult, you know, since the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's also really difficult to make it happen within a classroom setting. So I think having, you know, group projects and really helping students connect in the class, but towards a shared goal. We know that when students have a shared goal, it makes it a little bit easier. Like they are having purposeful conversations. They're able to work towards something in a purposeful way. Instead of just chatting. Although, so I did do an experiment last time I taught this class, and then I'm doing it again this semester. And I actually have students talk for just 5 minutes. They have to introduce themselves to another student and just talk about nothing for 5 minutes. And they've been telling me, you know, it's really challenging to do that. And they don't really know how to do that, but we talk about the importance of networking and introducing yourself to other people. But really, this also creates a sense of belonging in my class. And I had a student come up to me, like it was week 3, and she was like, Alicia, I've never met this many students in my class before, you know, and I rarely meet anybody in my class. And so it just was really powerful to see that happen inside the classroom space. But we know that students aren't doing this naturally. And so how do we leverage technology to help them connect easier and make this a little bit more seamless? The third trend that I'm really seeing is around jobs for the future. And this is a really big passion area of mine because what I'm seeing is that students just don't even know that many of these jobs, these new jobs exist. So what I'm thinking about is, for example, artificial intelligence or a lot of climate technology that's happening. These are huge industries that are going to be such a huge priority in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. But a lot of these students don't even know that these things exist. And so we have to do a better job as educators, really helping students to explore in these areas. The other connection with jobs for the future is really thinking about what are some jobs that are just in high demand. So maybe they've been around for forever, but really we're seeing a very low interest in these. So how do we actually make those types of jobs and roles interesting to learners in a new and interesting way? So I think that that's a huge challenge for educators. And this is also something that students want. They want something that they're working towards and that they're excited about. And that really brings me to my last trend that we're seeing. And this is really just rooted in students are really longing that connection and hope. And what I've seen with students is that once they get connected to something that they actually care about or that they're working towards, a goal that they have in mind, that they do have a sense of hope for the future. And if you've talked to a student recently, they're kind of losing hope in a lot of areas, culturally, right, societally. There's a lot of problems in our world, but when they start to see themselves as a problem solver and that they can actually make change, even in a small way, I think it really facilitates hope. And what I'm really seeing is that when students get connected to that, they're able to have that hope and work towards that future, a better future. And really, just to sum up, at Wildflower Education, we're really working to solve these problems. We're working to make it easier for students to connect one-on-one using technology that translates into that in-person connection. We're really helping to build that bridge to help students make it easier for them to build study groups and teams. And then really helping them explore what's next for them in a way that is more relevant and makes more sense from the student perspective. Thank you so much.
Oh, Alicia, that was great. And exactly right. The world's full of problems. And so, what a great mission for education to create a world of problem solvers, right? To get students engaged and out there. And I love these concepts and what your startup is doing. Appreciate that. Okay, let us move on to another poll question. Do you think EdTech startup vendors are important to changing the future of education? So if you can, please just take a moment to answer these questions. That would be great. So, in terms of teaching and learning, the legacy methods that we've used, are they still appropriate? Maybe they are. We've heard a lot about flex and hybrid, but please give us your feedback on what you think about this topic. And we will, kind of take a look at that shortly. All right. So next up, we have another startup speaker, and this is Greg M. Smith. Greg's career as a technology leader, he's been around for a while, a couple decades, so he's got a lot of experience, and he's got a lot of experience with transformational education projects. And he was the former CTO of University of Maryland University College, and his leadership resulted in improvements to the learning experience for a global student body and UMUC's cloud first strategy. Also worked on the desktop as a server program. And I know there's a lot of institutions that are expressing interest around this type of delivery, because everyone's trying to decide, do they buy $1,200 or $1,500 laptops, or is there another way to do this? Very interesting, Greg. Like to hear more about that. So yeah, could you please tell us what you believe is important in education, innovation, and transformation?
Thanks, Carl, for the introduction. I appreciate that. We can go ahead and move to the next slide. I think over the past several years, we've seen kind of a magnification of some issues that have existed prior to the pandemic. So as we talk about education access or access to education or even technology, There's kind of several core pieces that come to mind as challenges and that we saw exacerbated by the pandemic. First and foremost is cost. So students are challenged with the cost of education in general, but then also the associated tools necessary to take part in classes. So you have students who may be interested in things like video game design that can't compete with other students because of what they're kind of coming to the table with, or what access they need to be able to work in that environment. When you go to the kind of unequal access to technology in terms of rural areas where it may not have high-speed internet, students with disabilities is a area it's significantly overlooked when we're talking about access for technology in general. And then we have inadequate infrastructures along the kind of campus environments to support the transition in the way students are learning in a campus. There's no longer going to the computer lab. When we were in college, we would go to a computer lab with 30 or 40 or 50 machines. Now this is done in the classroom in real time. Laptops exist in the lectures and in the labs, and they need to be able to have the infrastructure to support that. Universities, what we've seen is there's a very strong concern and trend around cybersecurity and addressing cybersecurity issues, whether that's student data, whether that's access to campus networks, et cetera. And how have we been addressing that access control problem? And then around access to technology, universities tend to be strapped for overall operating budgets, and you wind up with machines and services and platforms that are obsolete, simply because there's not a budget or not a funding method to be able to kind of replace and keep up with the kind of latest and greatest is what the students will see when they graduate. So kind of these 5 areas have had a significant impact on the overall access to learning resources at all spectrums of those kind of socioeconomic status. And as a Lumen, we're working to address the equity and access gap by providing a managed virtual desktop as a service platform for students from K through 12 through higher education, and being able to really address the cost factors. So Molly, the student, can study the video game design courses that she wants to do from a $100 Fire tablet, rather than having to have the $5,000 MacBook that other students are coming to the table with. We're working with vendors like T-Mobile and Verizon to address areas around access to internet and networks. Infrastructures, if leveraging the virtual desktop as a service offering that Lumen does, we have the ability to address the infrastructure concern. Again, baked into that cybersecurity and the obsolescence component. Universities have thrown tens and thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars into open computer labs on campus. According to EDUCAUSE, 73% of that goes idle most of the day, or it goes idle 73% of the day. And so you're making significant investments. In $1 million investment, $730,000 is sitting idle over the course of 3 or 4 years. So there are different ways and better ways of doing that. Thanks, Carl, and I'll turn it back to you. Carl, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I do this once a day just to make sure everybody's paying attention. I told my panel that the other day because we met for practice, and I said I do this once a day. So I did it today, unfortunately. But I wanted to say that, yes, right on, Greg, 100% on the access issue in terms of internet access and equipment access for students. Not every student lives in an area that has the appropriate internet access, and in some cases, no internet access. Same thing with equipment. And so that's my reference to the spend on computers. The old way maybe isn't necessary anymore, and those funds can be redirected. You mentioned computer labs. That's one of the services we provide from Campus Consortium with schools is computer lab analysis to address exactly what you're talking about, usage. And exactly right. So many, they have these commodity computers sitting in these labs unused, and some of them are barely used. You have one class of 30 or 40 computers that's used one time a week or 2 times a week. There are opportunities for consolidation and efficiency, and of course, cost savings, and then providing the most recent technology to students and for faculty. Just wanted to give you an update on our last poll. Most people thought that, yes, significant change is needed in how they operate in terms of innovation that needs to be introduced, and many struggle, but we need to find solutions to help these schools. All right, Greg, thank you. Good stuff. Last poll question for the day. Audience, great attendees, thank you. Good feedback. Do you think EdTech startups offer unique benefits or prohibitive risks compared to established EdTech vendors? No, not really, somewhat, or yes. And if you could just take a moment to answer that last poll question, we'd appreciate it. And again, we'll get these results out to all of you. Next up, I'd like to introduce Jim Mazarakis. He is the Chief Operating Officer of OnSystem Logic, and he's a seasoned IT professional, 40 years of experience, and a lot of experience in organizational work and influence. So he understands complex projects, and of course, along with complex projects come risks and how to work smartly in these environments. He's actually developed a much needed service through his current company that deals with security. And you can see a lot of expertise in different areas, which is important because security applies to all these areas. The strategy, managing assets, finances, and working with outside vendors in addition to your internal employees and staff. So I would like to hand it over to Jim right now. Please take it away.
Thank you very much, Carl. Hello to everyone. Please go to the next page, Carl. So educational transformation is similar to every other transformation we've been seeing in the last few years, whether it's business transformation, banking transformation, customer service transformation, work transformation, entertainment, restaurants. So all of these transformations have led to much more digital platforms than we have ever seen before. Now, these platforms, of course, provide many, many opportunities and unfortunately, some challenges as well. Those challenges are malware, phishing attacks, spyware, ransomware. And every year, you see the statistics here, in just 1 year, 50% increase in the total number of some of these attacks. Now, the good news is, if you are owner of 7% of the corporate networks that cannot be penetrated, then you're doing great. But as you can see here, according to Forbes, 93% are very susceptible to be penetrated. The 7% really are the super large corporations, the Amazons and the Microsofts that have multiple layers of security. And even those, by very successful attempts, could be overcome. So existing solutions have a big challenge, and their challenge is that many of the companies that are providing these solutions gain the largest amount of their revenue from restoration of your environment. So once you get penetrated and you have malware, they come in and they clean it, they restore your environment. It may take weeks or months, you may lose some information, but the majority of their money is not made by selling you a prevention, it's selling you restoration. So that happens because these vendors are looking at past penetrations, and then similar to a virus, they develop an antidote or a vaccine, they distribute it to all of their customers, and now you're protected from that virus forevermore. Mm-hmm. The challenge is that 450,000 new malware samples are registered each day. That is a phenomenal number, and there is no way that past information can always be used effectively against that. So the approach that we have taken is, rather than looking what has happened before and presenting you with a solution, we are actually looking at how your software behaves when it's healthy. We create an AI map of that, and then we prevent that software from acting in a malicious way by being subverted by malware actors. So that is a very important difference, and it's the key thing that we would suggest to people to do, is to add an additional layer of protection. So you're not throwing away what you have today. You know, if you're using Microsoft Defender as an example, because we are recommending Microsoft Defender, most of you can get that from Microsoft for free if you're Windows users. So use that as much as you can, and then throw an additional layer of protection on top of it. Now, if you do nothing else to your environment, I would recommend that you patch as soon as possible all of your endpoints and your servers. So if you do nothing else but patching, that is the most effective solution. Our largest customer today is University of Maryland, with more than 3,000 endpoints that we protect. And we also monitor those endpoints as part of the service that we provide. And for patching, our solution is really a virtual patching solution, because we are not allowed. What does patching do? It stops somebody from taking advantage of some sort of miscoded piece of information or a system that has a vulnerability. Because we prevent that vulnerability from being taken advantage of, we actually provide virtual patching to your existing environment. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon. And Carl, I'm going to turn it back to you.
All right, Jim, thank you. Very interesting. And, you know, so many security solutions today for education and for others really look at the edge of the network, even the 24/7 monitoring. And as you mentioned, the endpoints are often not, you know, part of that strategy. So adding this is important, and having a very developed and strategic security posture in any institution is not a waste of money, for sure. It is prevention. You want to get out in front of the ransomware breach or the hack before it happens, because if you present it, if you prevent it, you've first of all, you're reducing your risk, right? That surface that's exposed and vulnerable is much reduced, so there's less likely of an issue happening. But if something does, you can get out in front of it and take care of it. And you're exactly right about the updates and the patches. You want to get there before. So learning the behavior of how people use technology and getting in front of the threats, very important. Great work. Okay, I think we have our last poll results in, and of course, most folks would like to think that EdTech startups do offer benefits and are the key to really getting where institutions need to get to in the future. I'd like to present our next panelist, Nate Hurst, who is Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of ActiveClass. Nate also was the Senior Director Marketing at Swell from August 20 to 21, Director Global Campaigns at Instructure from 17 to 20, and Head of Account-Based Marketing at Domo Incorporated. He has a BA in Communications from the University of Utah and certification in marketing skills from the Pragmatic Institutes. And he's here today to talk about innovation, education transformation, and ActiveClass, his organization, empowers instructors to have more impact in their virtual classrooms by giving them what everyone is used to today, because many folks are on it, that's social media. So I'd like to hand it over to Nate. Nate, please take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Carl. Pleasure to be here with you all today. Carl, if you want to click over to that next slide, I'll get started. But yeah, really, we think a lot at Active Class about the disparity between consumer technologies, especially social media, and what we're all used to, not just young students, right? It's the middle-aged guys too that also use social media a lot. And when you compare and contrast the functionality and usability and even the UX and the beauty of those products and the simplicity of them and the amount of attention they capture, and there's a big gap in our view of what they offer versus what a lot of our students are experiencing inside of education technology. Carl mentioned that I spent time at Instructure, and I'll just tell this story briefly, which was they make Canvas, right? And I'm sure a lot of you in the crowd today are Canvas users, and I love Canvas. It's one of the better LMSs on the market, though there's a lot of parity nowadays. But when I first started there, I'd come from a company called Domo that prided itself on it was an analytics space, and it prided itself on the simplicity and beauty of the product. And so I was a little taken aback when I got to Instructure and saw Canvas. Now, Canvas is very functional. It serves a major purpose within the institution, but in my humble opinion, I think we can do a lot better in terms of what we're offering to our students and to our instructors, and getting to parity with what consumer or B2B technologies offer, and having a closer match inside of EdTech. There's definitely some a disparity there. So we're focused on that. We want to provide a social media like layer to your LMSs to give students and instructors easier ways of communicating with each other, checking in on one another, building community, making friends. So much like Alicia was mentioning with Wildflower, they're focused on student engagement. That's part of our mission too, but we're also like, what does student engagement mean? There's all sorts of ideas around student engagement and how to activate that. Our vision and our thought is that it's really it's upon the instructor to help facilitate and create a lot of that engagement, right? Students aren't going to naturally join in conversation and make friends without somebody guiding them and helping them along the way. And so we want to make it easy for instructors to create those communities and create that dialogue and ensure that they're kind of the quote unquote, the influencer of their classroom, the star of their classroom, right? There's any number of influencers out there in today's social media landscape. They have a lot of power at their fingertips and a lot of tools to create and share and engage their audience. And we think instructors need a lot of those same tools in order to stay on par with what we're all. It's a lot of times, unfortunately, it's a battle for attention and attention span. And so we want to make sure that instructors have the same or similar tools and the ease of building and creating engaging content, reaching out and communicating with their students, just like many influencers might have in today's society. And that's important for us, but we also want to make it easy for them. If you look at any number of data, like the Chronicle of Higher Education had a few studies out recently that were suggesting what was the number? I think 50% of instructors are suggesting that their work-life balance and their the outlook of their job is not healthy right now. And 77% have said they consider either changing careers altogether, changing roles within the institution, or even retiring. They're burdened by a lot of these factors, and technology is one of them, right? So how can we create technology and tools that get out of the way for the instructors and allow them to better engage their students, but not also further burden them, right? Like as they're trying to juggle in-person classes with maybe a hybrid class, it's all this they're having to worry about multimodal functionality. And so our product offers some solutions to help with that. Just to give you an idea on this, I saw a tweet the other day from a Canvas user that was saying, "Oh, look how easy it is to incorporate Zoom into my classroom inside of Canvas." And I thought, oh, this will be interesting. It was a 2-page documentation of how to incorporate Zoom into Canvas and into their classroom. And I don't mean to hammer on Canvas or any of the LMSs, because there's some really powerful tools inside of there. But to contrast that with, if you're a YouTuber or you're on TikTok or any of the social media platforms, guess what you have to do to go live and engage with your audience? You hit one button and you're live and you're engaging with your audience members. So that's how we like to think about it. We have part of our solution is to make that simpler, that experience. So if you want to go live and conference with your students, or have a recording of that lecture or office hours, then be posted to a social media like feed. That's kind of what we offer and what we're aiming towards. The last point I'll make is that learning is happening at an accelerated pace, right, all over the place. And I've mentioned a lot of social media, and there's any number of blogs and folks you can follow in today's society. And so learning is happening everywhere. To me, there's a huge distinction. I hope we can all agree on this point that there's a big distinction between what learning is and what education is. And I wholeheartedly believe that you can't have education without following an expert, right? It's got to be accredited, of course, as we all know, but that expert is the instructor. And so we want to put the instructor back at the center of their classroom, make it easy for them to kind of be that, again, quote unquote, be that influencer of their classroom, and really have their students be their followers. And again, make it easy for the instructor to be that guide on the side, help usher them through the content, and really also increase kind of that human connection. We know Alicia touched on this briefly, like when we all feel connected and we feel like we're a part of something bigger than ourselves, we're able to actually get in that learner mindset and be more successful. So that's our aim, is to take kind of the best of social media. We know there's a lot, that's a loaded thing to say, is that we want to become similar to social media platforms, because there's so much negativity that comes with social media, right? But if you can take the good that persists and allows for those connections and the learning and the engaging content, that's what we want to bring and offer up to the instructors right inside of your LMSs. So that's our vision. And Carl, I'll pass it right back to you.
Thank you, Nate. That's great and very applicable, because so true. And again, we are not indicting or demeaning the hard work that learning management system companies put into their products. It's not an easy job to deliver an LMS that an institution relies on every day for providing students with the best experience possible from their institution. And, navigating the countless institutions that sign up, for example, with Canvas or Blackboard or any other, LMS is a lot of responsibility and work. It's not always easy to change and develop things. And that's where your solution really comes in as a great enhancement and provides faculty with another way to communicate and connect with students. I also wanted to address the other item that you mentioned about the guide on the side. And I remember that term coming up years ago in education. And, it's no longer the sage on the stage, it's the guide on the side. But, I like what you are saying about the faculty role, in that is we are not removing the faculty member from the control of the content. They're not in a passive role by being a guide on the side. You're really empowering them with a new way to reach students that they couldn't before. So it's just a different approach. They're still at the center of the instruction. They're still delivering the content. They're still doing it the way that they, think will benefit the students and education the best. They're just using different tools to do it. So very good, and keep up the good work. Thank you. I would like to move to our final presenter. And he's been a presenter with us before in our webinar series, and I really appreciate him attending along with the rest of this great panel. Dr. Brian Ellison, who is at the California Community College System, previously tenured instructor, senior level administrator, and he also was able, through his experience and expertise over all the years, to develop a much needed platform and service, and that's called Be Wise Learning. Also I cannot not introduce Brian Ellison without mentioning his surfboard shaping work that he does on the side. What a great place to do it in California. And I'm going to hand it right over to you, Brian. Please take it away.
All right, thank you, Carl. So yeah, my background's a little varied, a little broad, I guess, in the sense that I began in the community college industry many years ago. I actually still work in the industry as a vice president of student services now for a community college in Southern California. And so the discussion up to this point has really resonated with me on that particular basis. You know, the things that I'm looking for in terms of technology in a community college environment right now, probably my two most important issues, and this might resonate with our audience, is how can I incorporate technology into my efforts regarding diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and anti-discrimination? How can I use the technology that I currently have, or what sort of technology do I need to bring into the campus environment to move those items forward, so that I'm creating not only within the classroom environment a welcoming environment that includes those elements, but also just campus-wide, and also in terms of our social media presence and the way that we introduce ourselves to our prospective students. And so that to me is really important. The other way that I look at technology as a vice president is, how can I use the technology I have, or what do I need to increase my enrollment and my retention rates? Because, you know, I think this is sort of a national phenomenon, but certainly in California, community college system took a major hit in terms of declining enrollment. And actually that is pre-pandemic. It's a pre-pandemic phenomenon. So we were in decline prior to 2020, and now with subsequent to the pandemic and COVID, we are still experiencing some real declines in enrollment. So how can I use technology at this point to reverse that trend line? So those would be the two things that I'd be looking at as a vice president in the community college system. But shifting to BeWise Learning, and you can move to the next slide. Oh, you have, thank you. This idea really came out of my work as a college administrator and as a college faculty, community college faculty member. I was always interested in the non-credit and contract ed piece of community college work. You know, I think everyone's very familiar with the credit operation. These are the traditional courses that we offer for students that are intent on transferring to a four-year institution. But the non-credit piece and the contract ed piece are much more CTE driven. They're much more involved with short-term strategies to provide skill sets to students. They get them into employment situations quickly. They also are used for upskilling. And then lastly, to some extent, small business ownership. So what I thought of was with BeWise was I wanted to kind of look at a similar student population, the community college student population. So adults from probably the ages of 19 to say 45 that are looking for either new skill sets, they're looking for entry into the labor market, maybe they're career changers, or they're looking to become entrepreneurs and small business owners. And so that's really what BeWise Learning is all about. It's an effort to try to provide through an online learning experience the skill sets that folks need to make that transition. It really comes out of my work in the community college world, and it is an effort though to really kind of not necessarily replicate the programs offered, courses offered through a community college environment, but really try to build more of a niche market that is serving the same student population, but serving them in a slightly different way. We're betting hard here at BeWise Learning that education as we move into the future is going to be increasingly delivered online. I think if you look at students, even in a community college environment now, the latest surveys we have show that students definitely enjoy taking courses online, and in fact, enjoy taking, and there is a preference for asynchronous versus synchronous instruction in the online environment. So I think a lot of folks students are wanting to move in that direction, and BeWise Learning is an effort to try to serve that need as well. But that's what we do basically. We're small, we're growing. Again, we're betting that the world's moving in that direction to an extent. I guess the evidence I would suggest is Udemy, Coursera, and edX. They're great pieces of evidence to make that argument that I think increasingly you're going to be looking at a learning environment for many folks that's an online environment. Some of the goals and focal points for the business, you can see student, professional, personal goals. We're trying to address those in a high-touch online environment. Skill sets, as I mentioned, leading to employment, and really short-term learning strategies, not courses running a traditional 16 or 18-week semester. Certified online courses, where we're able to do that, we will provide certification for students taking courses with us. And then lastly, the asynchronous approach, so remote teaching and learning, which provides a lot of students the convenience that they want. You know, they can engage in the course on their terms, on their timelines, and they're not going to be saddled with you know, what could be a very traditional learning experience, which is you come on campus Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 10. Hopefully you find parking and you get to class on time. You sit there for 55 minutes and then you depart and go off and do the rest of what you need to do that day. I think that learning experience is becoming increasingly, I'm not going to say irrelevant, but it's becoming harder and harder to expect students to engage in that type of learning experience at this point in time, given all the other concerns and responsibilities that many of these students have. So we're trying to move the needle, if you will, in the direction of an online learning experience that's asynchronous, that's convenient, and that provides skill sets that hopefully move students into jobs quickly. All right, thank you.
All right, Brian, great. You know, you hit on a lot of what the education sector is talking about today, and I'm going to give the example of a recent book by the president of Temple University in Philadelphia. Jason Wingard wrote a book about the devaluation of college and addressed a lot of the points you brought up that you're addressing in your business in terms of the effort to, you know, on-ground learning provides as an obstacle. Also the synchronous versus asynchronous. And also, you know, one of the points you said is, you know, what other investment do you make where you have to wait to the very end to get the payoff? And if you go to 99%, you know, you pay for 99% and you take 99% of your education, but you don't finish that last percent, you don't get your degree. Right. So now you're talking about certification, skilling, reskilling, upskilling, you know, all these shorter term accomplishments that can pay off in real life. But that's a different model for education too, not to reduce education to simply you know, skill learning and being certified to do a job, because education provides so much more in the humanities, how to be a citizen of the world, how, you know, to interact with others, and many other tools that are essential to really embracing and taking on the world's problems. You know, so I think you're headed in the right direction. I think all of you are. You're all creative innovators and leaders in this space. And I really appreciate your participation today. We're coming up on just about the end of our time. I was not able to view any of the Q&As. If anybody else in the panel was able to see them and wants to comment on them, that's fine. Otherwise, we will address all the questions offline and get them out to our audience. All right. All right. Well, thank you, attendees. Thank you to all the schools and all the people. Thank you to our regulars for coming by. And thank you for all the new institutions. Whether you're a member or not, please come, please attend. We need your feedback, inputs. The only way we will continue education on a successful path to the future is your participation and your information. We are going to get an education technology report out to all of you. And it will have our vendor information that joined us, our EdTech startup folks, their concepts, their ideas. and also your inputs from your poll questions. Also, you will see analysis and research references, so you can explore what other people are doing and what other people are writing about it in the education sector to help you along and your institution along the journey of getting into the best future state you possibly can. So again, thank you, attendees. Thank you to the Campus Consortium team who's here every webinar, quietly working in the background. And thank you to the 5 great presenters and technology leaders that were here today. Really appreciate your time. Alicia, Greg, Jim, Nate, and Brian. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.